Welcome to the Yellowjackets Hive. I am Media Melanie here with...
And I'm Emily.
And today we're covering Yellowjackets episode 202, Edible Complex. And now that we've seen the episode, we have more context on our weekly mailing from Showtime, which, of course, included Javi's cargo pants, a fire, and Jackie's heart necklace. So...
Yes.
I still cannot believe that Nat lied to Travis about Javi. Of course, we'll get more into that. I think there were a few lies told in this episode. Just saying. But before we begin, we should say that on our Yellowjackets Hive After Dark this week, we had our friend Ro Rusak join us. Of course, she's the news editor at Nerdist. And we talked a little bit about how we finally saw cannibalism. And she shared with us what she calls soft cannibalism. So we're just going to play a really quick clip with that.
Well, I actually thought that this is what we could call like soft cannibalism, right? Like they didn't exactly kill Jackie. Jackie decided to be like out and freeze. And then they did decide to eat her, but she was kind of like, they didn't really like mean to cook her and they didn't like murder her in a sense. So it was kind of like, you know, I think they set it up really cleverly.
I like
soft
that.
Cannibalism, exactly. You heard it here first, folks.
I loved that. I love soft cannibalism. We're going to keep using it. And of course, we'll hit some hard cannibalism at some point pretty soon too. So
it was such a good way to describe it. Like just because of the circumstances and how the whole situation transpired. Like that was a great way to coin it, if you will, like soft cannibalism. That's perfect.
Yes. Oh, I really enjoyed that. So before we get started, Emily, I'm going to would you rather you. We've been doing our Yellowjackets would you rather for each episode. So, Emily, would you rather be Mari's sous chef or empty the poop bucket?
I honestly feel like I have to go with empty the poop bucket. Just because, like, Mari is so snarky, and, like, she did have a really funny line, though, like, when she was cooking, and Misty and Crystal are sitting behind her, and she turns around, and she's like, ugh, there's two of you now. And I absolutely loved that. But she is just, like, the definition of a mean girl in my book. And I'm not going to sit there and have her tell me what to do and delegate and boss me around. So I think I would rather take the poop bucket.
Fair enough. And, you know, I mentioned that I thought Mari was like the cabin Karen on our Hive After Dark after show on Sunday. And she really is. I mean, she's kind of setting herself up, or the writers are setting her up potentially to be Pit Girl, because she's probably the most unlikable person there, maybe aside from Misty. But I mean, I kind of like Misty more than I like Mari personally. So
at least with Misty, like, you know what you're getting. Like, there's no like hiding her personality. Like, it's very surface level with her. But like Mari, like in the beginning, they show her like on the airplane with Akila, and she's like, do you want some fruit by the foot? I've got like a mile of it. And like, she was being so nice, but like that changed so quickly. Like she flipped on a dime. And I would stay as far away from her as possible. Like you said, they're like really setting it up really well for her to be Pit Girl. And I know we both think that that's the most likely contender for Pit Girl.
It is. Just from a hair perspective, I feel like Crystal's hair is a little bit too short. I feel like Jen's hair is a little too short. I could maybe see Melissa, like her hair's long enough. It's a little bit lighter, though. I feel like she's got a little lighter of a complexion. So still going to go with Mari. We'll see. But before we dive in, why don't you read us the episode description from Showtime?
Sure. So it says, breaking off that friendship with the person who keeps ghosting you isn't always easy. Ty speeds through an unexpected reunion, Nat shacks up with Lottie, and Misty encounters a riddle wrapped in an enigma dressed in cargo shorts.
Yes, we saw Citizen Detective Walter, of course, played by the famous Elijah Wood. What a great addition to the cast. We saw his very muscular calves on that first scene with him in the nursing home. And I cannot wait to see where him and Misty go this season. It's going to be great.
I love how when they showed him, like, it shows her, like, checking him out, and it pauses on his calves. Like, that cracked me up so hard. And when I watched with my mom, she was so funny, because she was like, oh my gosh, look at his socks. He's such a nerd.
Yes, I absolutely loved seeing Elijah Wood and Misty checking him out. That was actually, was that your Misty moment of the week this week?
Yes.
Yes, her sneakily checking out Walter's muscular calves. Yes. That, and of course, steamed clams, escalators are a couple of MFQ's turn-ons. So, yes. Why don't we get started with the teen timeline? We will highlight all of the most important events. Emily, how did this episode open up?
So this episode opens up with Shauna in the meat shed again, imagining having another conversation with Jackie. And this conversation, like, stuck out to me because while she's talking to her, like, you can see the bear carcass, and she's like, you can tell there's, like, almost nothing left on that thing. And she's trying to get more meat off of it. And that's when Jackie, like, starts, like, taunting her almost. She's like, Shauna, you're hungry. And Shauna says something like, Mari's making dinner, so, like, that it'll be fine soon. And she's like, but that's not what you're hungry for. And as soon as she said that, like, I knew where it was going. Like, yeah.
Absolutely. And can we just talk about the makeup situation? Like,
Oh,
I mean, so we see Jackie had makeup applied to her by Shauna. Maybe not the most beautiful application of makeup, but how did the caboodle get out there?
yeah. I personally think that, like, Shauna subconsciously took it out there because she knew that she was going to end up doing something like that. So she doesn't remember doing it, but she brings it out there because I can't see any of the other girls bringing it out there. Why would they? Like, they're not spending their time in the meat shed talking to dead Jackie.
Unless it was Ty, like, in a fugue state, but I think that's the last thing that Ty's doing in her dissociative identity disorder situation. I don't think she brought a caboodle out to the meat shed. So it's got to be Shauna.
Yes.
It's got to be. So,
And I think Shauna, like, loses time when she's with Jackie. Like, I don't think she's aware of how much time is passing because all the other girls made comments. Like, Natalie said something like, it's totally normal for somebody that's 7 months pregnant to spend half their night risking pneumonia talking to their dead best friend. So we know she's out there a lot.
right.
And that alone, like, I can't believe that they're not, like, questioning it more. Like, I think Coach Ben is the one that says, like, well, maybe one of you should go and get her.
Yeah.
But nobody seems, like, ready to volunteer to go and get her.
No, it's an awkward confrontation, of course. Nobody wants to get involved with that situation in the chat. I mean, it's a little bit alarming. So, yes. And then Jackie, of course, starts talking to Shauna again and encouraging her to eat her. She says, that's not what you're hungry for, referring to the bear meat. And there's a scene with a knife and it looks like Jackie's cutting into her arm, but lo and behold, who's holding the knife?
Yeah, I know, Shauna. Like, that part really creeped me out when she started, like, slicing into her own arm. Like, but yeah, I mean, like, knowing, like, that she's imagining all this, like, that, like, she's the one that does it, obviously. But, like, what did she do with it? Like, did she dispose of it or did she eat it? Like, because we don't see that happen. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we do not see it happen. Jackie jerky. I mean, gosh, we've seen all of the really good eating Jackie material out there on the socials. Just so much opportunity there. And of course, we're still kind of digesting this episode, speaking of bad puns, but there we go. So after we see Jackie and Shauna out in the meat shed, we then see Van waking up in the middle of the night and discovering that Ty is gone. And where'd she go, Emily?
She she walks outside, and like it's a good thing that Van woke up exactly when she did, because if she didn't, like we saw where Ty was walking, and she was walking towards a cliff, which I also thought that was really interesting because it that cliff had to be somewhat close to the cabin, yet we've never seen that before. So somebody speculated like maybe when Javi was running away at June coming, like he ran off the cliff and didn't know that it was there, which
Oh.
which would like make a lot of
Ooh.
sense. But the tree that you see that you just showed the symbol of, yeah, like that's what really interested me the most about that scene. Like was I feel like the man with no eyes was leading her there for some kind of a purpose. And we know that she sleepwalks again. So I have a feeling that everywhere she goes when she's sleepwalking, like we're going to see a symbol in that area.
Gosh, and in that way, is the symbol protective because she was actually saved from going off the cliff? Or is it a warning? Is it a warning, hey, there's a cliff? If the cliff was that close, you would think that they would, I don't know, tie a flag around a tree or something just
Yeah,
to remind them, especially in the snowscape where everything kind of looks just white and the
yeah,
same. But gosh, now that you've said the thing about Javi going off the cliff, I can't stop thinking about it. So
yeah.
I am really hoping that they do not recover Javi. Somebody pointed out, I think it was the Facebook group, that picture that we had seen of the girls all eating something, which we speculate to be placenta, that there's a shot of what looks like Javi under a blanket next to Travis in the cabin.
Yeah,
Um, I didn't make it out clear enough to buy
no.
that personally. I don't think that they would have shown us that either. So,
Yeah, I
um,
don't either.
yeah,
I
but
don't
the
think it was Javi.
I don't think so either. But this man with no eyes situation is really interesting because, of course, as we had discussed in the Hive After Dark, we've seen him before. Ty's grandma saw him. Is this a genetic mental illness that gets carried down? We've, of course, seen Sammi drawing pictures of the man with no eyes.
Mhm.
If he represents death, um, whose death is he representing? Was he, bringing Ty towards her death? And luckily, Van was there. Van, who always
Yeah.
seems to come out of things in a positive way. So it'll be
He's
interesting to see if we keep seeing the man with no eyes with Ty's sleepwalking.
Yeah, and I think he's definitely tied to her, like her alternative personality, if you wanna call it that, because just because of what we see in season 1, when she's giving that speech where she says she's gonna step down from running for Senate, and in the middle of the scene, she looks out into the audience and she sees him. And it was like, as soon as she saw him, like, almost like a switch flipped, and she completely changed. Like, she changed what she was saying. She had a change, like, in her, like, facial expression. And to me, that means that, like, he's somehow tied to this fugue state alternative personality that she has because she sees him when she goes into those states.
She does.
So he has to be tied somehow.
Right. And I mean, if it is dissociative identity disorder, did her grandma suffer from that or did she
Yeah.
just see him? Does Sammi suffer from that? And is he doing things that he's not aware of? Of course,
Mhm.
speaking of Ty, she imagined Sammi there, which we'll get into a little bit later. But that was alarming and it makes me question anything we've seen from Ty's perspective thus far.
Yeah.
So
Especially because the showrunners have also said that a lot of what we're going to see this season is not reality. So it makes me wonder if the whole of what we've seen, like what actually is really true and what's not.
right. And of course, we did see something we can definitely say is not reality during the cannibal sequence at the end. That feast, of course, is not rooted
Mhm.
in reality. It's more of a dream sequence. So, again, will be interesting to see what's real, what's not as the season continues.
Yeah.
And the next thing from the teen timeline, Van suggests getting help from Lottie for Ty's sleepwalking. And of course, Ty does not agree with that. Ty wants nothing to do with Lottie and her situations, if you will.
I'm not surprised by that. Like she's been a very she's been very vocal about the fact that she doesn't believe in whatever Lottie is pushing on them. So that doesn't surprise me. And it doesn't surprise me that Van asked her if Lottie would be able to help, because we know that Van does buy in.
Yes.
Like, I think in the first episode of season 2, like, at one point you see Van is still wearing that necklace that Lottie gave her. The deer bone.
Right. Yes, the
Yeah.
talisman. Oh, so interesting. And we've seen more talisman pictures in previews for season 2. That one that looks like it's like a little squirrel head with some stick skeletons hung somewhere. So perhaps they take a little piece of everything that they've sacrificed or that has come their way, and they add it as kind of a talisman.
Oh, that's a good thought, that, like, they use things from what they, like, sacrifice. That's a really good thought.
Right? I mean, maybe eventually, I mean, Jackie's necklace essentially is kind of a talisman in itself, just symbolically. So perhaps, and the bear heart, which of course has since decomposed, but yes, there's some interesting things starting to unravel out there in the wilderness. And we then see Nat and Travis go searching for Javi again. And this time things are a little different because Nat wants to split up with Javi because she has a plan in place. And I don't agree with her plan personally. What do you think about the lie she told to Travis that she found Javi's pants? What an elaborate lie, by the way, like cutting her own leg. I mean, I wouldn't want to risk infection, anything like that. So I think it was a pretty bold choice. And how long was she thinking about it? Like, not cool, Nat.
I'm so torn because, like, even though I don't agree with what she did, like, I understand why she did it. Like, she knows that Travis is hurting. She knows that Travis wants nothing more than to find his brother. And he will probably keep searching forever, like, until they're no longer in the wilderness. Like, I can't see him giving up on looking for his brother just because, like, of how traumatic, like, the traumatic way that they lost their father. And, like, they don't know at this point, like, they've been out there for 7 months, and I think they've all, like, resigned to the fact that, like, this is it. Like, we're stuck here. Like, there is no rescuing us. There is no going home. So he wants to make sure Javi's okay. And I would too. Like, that's natural. But, like, she thought she was doing the right thing. Like, I think her head and her heart were in the right place. But I also think that it was a little bit selfish of her to do that too. I do.
I agree. And I agree with you in that her head and her heart were in the right place. But at the same time, gosh, I mean, that's a pretty big lie. And we've got to imagine that she gets caught in that lie. And that has something to do with the relationship she has with the other teammates.
Oh, yeah.
Throughout the rest of their stay in the wilderness. And then also, when they get back to the adult timeline. And who knows? I mean, maybe that and whatever transpires was some kind of trigger to make her start using again when she got back. Did she start using right away? Or, did it take time? That gap post-rescue and then leading into adulthood, there's so many things that must happen that we have not seen yet. And I'm dying to find out what those things are.
I definitely think that there's a possibility, like, if Javi's found, like, dead or alive, that this is really going to come back and it's going to bite her, because it's obviously going to cause problems between her and Travis, but I think it's possible that it could cause problems with her and the rest of the group as a whole, like, because they might have a problem with what she did, especially Lottie, because Lottie was so insistent that he's still alive. Like, when they got back and they showed them the shorts, like, Lottie was like, no, like, that can't be possible. Like, I know he's alive. Like, I can feel it. So I can see that, like, maybe that is what splits the group. Like, ultimately.
It could be. It could be. And when is the split coming? I don't know, but we did see in some of the preview photos Ty walking with Shauna in a blizzard, and you've got to think if they're leaving the cabin in a blizzard and walking somewhere, there's got to be a big reason for that. So we initially thought maybe she was going into labor, but it seems to me the cabin would be the best spot to go into labor unless you've already split into clans and then you're forced to go elsewhere. So
That's true. Maybe
We'll
they
see.
split, and maybe they were trying to make their way back to the cabin because they knew that's where she needed to be.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, that's definitely true. So next scene, Ty goes out to the meat shed and discovers exactly what Shauna has been doing out there.
Oh, yeah.
And she's pretty alarmed about it, as she should be, because let's face it, if you walk into a meat shed and you see a corpse positioned all funny, all of a sudden wearing makeup, it's a little alarming,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
obviously can totally see, why Ty got upset about that. And she really calls her out, and then she suggests that they cremate her. And that initially does not go over well.
No. Shauna's like, you can tell that Shauna's like trying to think of anything that she can say to prevent this from happening, because she's like, the ground is frozen solid. We can't even bury her. And Ty's like, but we can cremate her. We are getting rid of Jackie's 2-month-old corpse. Like, that is something that we should have done right from the get go. Like, it's not healthy. It's not healthy for you. It's not healthy for your baby. And then Shauna comes back with, like, what do any of you know about what's good for my baby? And obviously, hanging out with a dead person in the freezing cold while you're 7 months pregnant isn't really a great idea. Like, and Lottie, like I don't know why Lottie like protects her so much in this instance. Like, she's like defending her behavior, and her behavior is so far from normal. I mean, granted, the circumstances that they're in are not normal, so you can't grieve the way you would normally grieve, but like, you know that doing what she's doing is messed up. Like, and you're sitting there and you're not trying to interfere. Like, why? Like, are you afraid of what she'll do? Are you afraid you might send her into early labor? Like, I have no idea.
I don't know either. I mean, she's of course, an empath, and she feels things and sees things. So maybe there's some feeling that she has that her gut is just guiding her, and that's what's coming out. But
Yeah.
Mari, our cabin Karen, of course, asks if they should take Jackie's jacket, and Shauna does not like that. And I'm just
No.
thinking, like, okay, keep the rest of her clothes on, but like, take the jacket. I mean, there's a baby that's coming on the way. They're
Yeah.
gonna need more clean things. I mean, you and I have both given birth. Like, there's a lot of like things that happen during birth where you could use like as many like dry clothes, blankets, whatever as possible, right? Like something to
Yep.
wrap the baby in. I mean,
Yeah.
something for it to sleep on. So, I mean, I get
Yeah.
Lottie was trying to protect Shauna by pulling down the sleeve so the other girls didn't see that, but I just think that was a miss. I still think they should have taken the jacket, but
Oh
that's just
yeah,
me.
absolutely. Like you said, like they're in the middle of the wilderness. It's freezing cold. A baby is coming. They have no clothing for this baby. Like, so they're, and what they have already, like you said, is all dirty, worn, ragged, tattered. Like, it's the middle of winter, so I would imagine that they're not able to wash their clothes the same way that they're able to in the summertime. And they don't have laundry detergent, so it's not like they're really getting it like super clean anyways. So that jacket would have been the perfect thing to keep for that baby, to keep that baby warm.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. To your point, there is definitely no laundry out there. And Ty mentioned, when they were going over the poop and pee bucket situation, let it smell funkier than usual or whatever. So I'm sure the cabin is pretty darn funky, but let's face it, that poop in the cabin was definitely a thing. And back to that really quick, Misty's comment about the boy and girl poop, that was pretty funny. That was like a good Misty one liner. And I believe that it was either Ty, who pooped in the bucket in a fugue state, like whoever smelled it dealt it, I guess. Like
Yeah,
she's the one that smelled it. She went and emptied the bucket. That or our cabin Mari, perhaps, just with her sense of entitlement, or Coach Ben. I mean, here's the
yeah,
thing. If it was Coach Ben, like, you got to give him a little bit of a break. The poor dude's missing a leg. It's
yeah,
not comfortable for him to hobble along on crutches and go take a shit in the forest in the snow. So,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you know
Because
what? Like, give him a
we
pass,
saw
maybe.
we saw him struggling in the first season with Misty when Misty was helping him, and she's like, "Just bear down."
And then she sang the
So,
Breakfast at Tiffany song by Deep Blue
yeah,
Something, which was an absolute classic moment from season 1. I
yeah.
loved that episode of Bear Down.
But if
So,
it was Ben and I was there, like, I wouldn't even be mad because, like you said, like, he has one leg.
yeah,
So
right.
how can you fault him for that?
Right. And what that means is this is the first time someone's done that. So he's actually been going outside then this whole entire time. So good
Yeah.
for him. Good for whoever is helping him, which is surely not Misty.
Did you notice in the first episode when Misty's outside, like, collecting snow for water and Crystal comes it looks like Crystal comes out of an outhouse. Did you notice that?
Oh, maybe. Yeah. I think yes. I didn't know that there was an outhouse there though. Was that I
I
don't think we've seen it before. If
No, but she was going to the bathroom and she comes out of it looks like an outhouse to me because it's really small.
hmm,
And I thought that was so interesting because like we said, like they're going in the woods. But if they have an outhouse, why aren't you using the outhouse? Like it didn't make sense. It was like a little
right.
detail that I noticed because that was when Crystal came out singing that one song. I can't remember what song it was, but I absolutely love that part. Because Misty's like, "Shut the fuck up."
Yes, I've been enjoying having the extras there. I think it adds a little bit more context in the teen timeline. I know,
Yeah.
other sentiments online. Some people are not going the extras there. We're all entitled to our opinions, so it is what
Like
it
I
is.
said before, though, like if they really are gonna eat each other, they need a bigger pool of people. So these extras are essential in a way.
Right, right. And so eventually they end up building the funeral pyre and they do end up, of course, starting to cremate Jackie. Although it should be known, I was reading online that I believe it takes 1800 degrees in order to fully cremate a body, and campfires typically are around the 1500 to 1600 degree mark. So
Yeah.
no matter what, her body wouldn't have been cremated fully, but things would have turned out differently if there was not some force out in the wilderness there that made
Yeah.
it so, of course, the snow fell on her and perfectly cooked her.
Yep.
Um,
That was
so
what my husband said when we watched. He's like, "You realize that when that snow fell, she was slow cooked. Winner,
yes,
winner, Jackie dinner."
yes, oh, absolutely. So, continuing to move through the teen timeline after they finally get Jackie all settled and burning, we see the Nat and Travis sex scene, which is fascinating. First, the timing of it, right? Because Travis has got to be feeling some kind of sense of relief,
Yeah.
even though I'm sure it's a heaviness, darkness, sadness, etc. But whatever it is, it opens him up to sleeping with Nat. But throughout that whole thing, we're seeing interspersed these photos of him and Lottie, and this one
Yeah.
in particular, with the light shining on her and the positioning, it really reminds us of the Pieta, which is, of course, the famous depiction of the Virgin Mary cradling Jesus's human body after his death. And
Yep.
that's interesting because now, of course, we know she's present at his actual death when he is an adult.
Yep.
So, first of all, like, poor Nat. I mean, Travis isn't like imagining Lottie in a sexual way. It's like he's
Yeah.
feeling this connection with her because of everything that they've been doing together, the rituals before they leave to go hunting, the drinking of the blood, etc. So Travis is fully bought in, and they definitely show Lottie's power over him during that
Yeah.
sex sequence. It's a little
Absolutely.
awkward.
Yeah. My mom said during that scene, like, it's so clear that Lottie has such a hold over them, like with her, like if you want to call her like a spiritual guidance kind of thing, like they're all buying into what she's throwing at them. And it always makes me go back to the first season when adult Natalie says that Travis didn't believe in any of that shit. But to me, it looks like Travis is a true believer of everything Lottie is saying. Like, especially because right before they go hunting or looking for Javi this episode, Travis makes a comment like, you missed the blessing that Lottie gave. And Natalie says something like, oh, well, I figured you had it covered. And he keeps going. And then Natalie says, I can't remember the exact line that she says, but like she says something like, Lottie's making relationships with each and every fucking pine needle.
Yes, she absolutely is. Of course, she ran out of her medication a long time ago, and it's hard to say if what's happening to her out there is because she's not medicated or because of the forces out there or a combination of both. And now we know that her parents sought treatment for her post-rescue in 1998. She was getting electroshock treatment. She was in a Swiss mental institution for about 25 years. And now, of course, we see her as an adult, but a lot in the wilderness. She is definitely up to stuff. That Wiccan crap, I think, is what Nat said at one point. So they're in the cabin, they're having sex. We see some funny camera angles happening outside. So the scene pans like kind of over the wilderness, and we get a different perspective. The view we're getting is implying that we're following the sightline of someone or something, right? Like some kind of force or something. And we've seen that before, like the door slamming in season 1. We've seen those camera perspectives where it appears someone is watching them. Even with Nat and Travis out in the wilderness when they were looking for Javi an episode ago, it seemed like there was somebody out there watching them. So that force is moving purposely and with intent, projected by that camera angle. We see it, of course, forcing that snow to drop down onto Jackie, which smothers the flames and gets Jackie down to kind of a low burn and cooks her perfectly. And they're waking up in the cabin. At first, I was unclear. I was like, are they waking up because Nat and Travis are having sex and someone's going to yell at them? No, not why they're waking up whatsoever. They're waking up because they smell human meat, Jackie, cooking outside. And it's almost like they're all in a trance, and they wake up and they, all just kind of walk out there and they're looking at each other and let the soft cannibalism ensue. They go for it. And it looks that every single one of them partakes, of course, except for Coach Ben, who goes back into the cabin and is looking 100% horrified, alarmed. What am I going to do? That look on his face was absolutely something. And interspersed with this whole cannibalism situation is another dream sequence where, well, not a dream sequence, but they're kind of imagining themselves at this feast. It looks like almost like the Last Supper or this like Roman Greco celebration. And, Ro talked a little bit about how when we consume, essentially we're making life. And so they show some of them, like Van here, for instance. I mean, gosh, she's got like stuff just dripping down her and they are feasting. Shauna, they're showing eating a strawberry when, of course, in reality, she's eating her best friend. We see Misty with a smile on her face. And now we know, like we had seen Misty eating watermelon in some of the teasers and previews for season 2. So now we know where that came from. And we had kind of talked about that. Perhaps they're imagining, eating this fruit while they're actually eating something else. And now we know for sure that it is dead Jackie. So now that we know the cannibalism happened, that answers one of our big questions, of course, was what happens to Jackie's body and how the cannibalism started. Other questions answered in this episode: Travis's death. We know what happens now, even though we think Lottie is lying. And also, Shauna is a suspect in Adam's murder. So they're starting to pay off that storyline with her stabbing Adam and the torso. And with that, we can move on to the adult timeline.
Wait 1 second. I read an article about episode 2, like 2 nights ago, and it was Jonathan Lisco talking about episode 2 and what happens. And in the article, he said that Ty was in her fugue state when they were eating Jackie, which
Mm.
completely blew my mind because I have a feel. We've all seen the trailer. I don't know if you remember this exact scene, but there's one shot of teen Ty. She's like holding on to something and she's bent over and she's screaming.
Yes. Yes.
I think that that's going to be because she finds out that they ate Jackie and she partook in eating Jackie. And she's going to be really, really, really upset about it.
Yeah, and we briefly talked about this too, like the hangover the next day when like
Mhm.
what is that awkward conversation? It's like, maybe if you have like a one night stand or something and you're like having to confront the person the next morning,
Yeah.
right? It's probably pretty awkward, I would imagine. And like that, they wake up, they're looking at each other, they're like, God, what did we do last night? Like, and are they still hungry? Are they only gonna have, like, a taste for human meat now? I mean, that seems to be a pretty prevalent theme within cannibalism. Once
Yeah.
once you have it, then that's, like, what you're craving, so
And are they going to, like, obviously they didn't eat her entire body in one sitting. So are they going to save it or are they going to just get rid of the rest of it?
Oh, I mean, at this point, they've gotta maximize what they have if they're
Yeah.
already, like, investing in consuming. I
Yeah.
mean, they're not gonna let it go to waste, and, as Shauna pointed out, she had her hand on her belly, and she said she wants us to, and
Mhm.
and a little bit of a double entendre because they imply that she's talking about her baby, rubbing her
Yeah.
belly, of course, with the hunger. But also, we heard Jackie say, that she was hungry for something else. So I think she means kind of Jackie and her baby. And now Jackie will always be a piece of her. Like
Yep.
her nutrition will absorb into the placenta that the baby is using for its nutrition. And it's come full circle. Jackie
Mhm.
and Shauna are indeed one. So,
Yes.
wow. But again, that just makes it so much more awkward when Shauna has to go have brunch
Yeah.
with Jackie's parents every year. I just can't imagine her sitting there like eating food and not thinking, God, remember that time I ate your daughter's ear? Like, ooh, awkward,
Yeah, or her
awkward.
left arm.
Or her left arm, right? I mean, oh my God. Oh my God. So on to the adult timeline. We open with Callie and Kyle breaking up. Really quick note on Callie. Sarah, who plays Callie, is in The Night Agent on Netflix, which I burned right through. Absolutely loved it. She plays the vice president's daughter. Highly recommend it. It will be on my Watch This Wednesday post. So
Mm.
check it out. And a Paramount Plus show, Rabbit Hole with Kiefer Sutherland. I started that one too. It's
Oh, my
it's
husband
pretty
wants
good.
to watch that.
There's
Yeah.
a 3 episodes so far, it's pretty good, so anyway, side note, Sarah is in The Night Agent, so check it out, but we open with her and Kyle breaking up. Callie is just, like, such a typical smug teenager. I
Yeah.
mean, ugh, you know, I she's
I
obviously dealing with some stuff.
Yeah, that makes me feel, like, a little bit bad for her just because, like, she's been dragged into this whole fiasco with her parents because she knows about Adam. Like, she met Adam at the club, like, she found Adam's license, like, in their house, like, and gave it back to Shauna, so she's, like, been inserted into this, like, without wanting to, and now she is involved, like, whether they want her to be involved or not.
Right, absolutely. So Callie and Kyle break up, and then we start to see adult Ty, right? And adult Ty is having some issues in this episode.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the picture of her. Just that look on her face when she's driving the car with Simone. But prior to that, she's drinking espresso. She's exercising feverishly, and she imagines that Sammy is there, and he's not even there, we come to find out, which I didn't see coming. I thought he was there playing with Steve, so that was a little
Yeah.
bit unexpected for me.
Yeah. I never for a second thought that he wasn't there, and that just goes to show, like, just how drastic the situation with Ty has become, because now she's hallucinating things while she's actually awake. So, that brings, like, a whole another level into it.
Oh my God, it's absolutely crazy. And so then Lottie is claiming that after she heard the news about Travis dying, she had some of her cult members keeping an eye on Nat to make sure she didn't do anything stupid like shoot herself. So now we know that she was indeed being watched by Lottie's cult. That's another question answered. And of course, now she is in the cult compound or intentional community compound with Lottie. And they had a funny exchange. It was
Yeah.
she said, you've been finger painting in the loony bin for the past 25 years, and now here you are running a cult. And maybe that's a qualification for running a cult. Maybe, I don't know.
In that conversation too, like Lottie like defends her choice to like bring those people in to follow Natalie. And Natalie says something like Lottie says something about how it's like therapeutic. And Natalie says, "Oh, so was it therapeutic when your purple fucks jumped me?" or something like that. I loved that. I absolutely loved that.
That was good. And, Nat is still not buying into Lottie's cult here in the
No.
future days or the present timeline either. She never has. It doesn't seem like she will. Something interesting that happened, though, with Nat was when she had that dream or flashback of her ODing. I thought that
Yeah.
was really interesting because it looked like she was being treated by medics, and it
Mhm.
looked like Travis was there in the
Yeah.
background. And why did this alarm her so much? What happened there? Were her and Travis doing drugs together? Did Travis just come and find her? It was
Yeah.
just a quick little thing, but I think
He's definitely there.
yeah,
It's
he's
definitely
definitely there.
Yep.
There. And I'm wondering what's going to happen with that. Like, it scared her for some reason, so they're obviously going to
Mhm.
come back to it. They don't just insert a random flashback like that for no reason. So
It
curious to
makes me
see.
think about how in the episode, like, when Lottie tells the story about how Travis dies, and excuse me, she says, he says something like, I just wanna pass out until like, I just wanna do it till I pass out because you have to get close to death in order to talk to it. So, like, that made me think that maybe, like, that was Natalie's near death experience, like,
Oh.
because he was saying that, like, Van had one, he said Lottie had one, like, back when they were in the wilderness, so that made me think maybe this was Natalie's way of, like, getting as close to death as possible without dying.
Right. Oh my goodness. And I just still cannot get over the note. Tell Nat she was right.
Yeah.
What was she right about? Like, must have to do with Lottie. I mean, I did not buy Lottie's story for like 1 second. Like, not even 1 second. First of all, great casting with adult Travis.
Yes.
I think like his looks, I think the way that he speaks,
Oh my gosh,
very
the voice.
yes. I mean, it almost sounds like it could be Kevin Alves. I
Yeah.
mean,
Mhm.
absolutely. But he's in this like frantic state. Um, Lottie goes over there and she's like sits on the couch and falls asleep. And that's, of course, when Travis gets up and leaves. But something does not add up. The buttons being broken with the crane. He just went and set up all the candles all by
Yeah,
himself. Why is he leaving her the bank account instructions? Like, there's
exactly.
so many things that don't add up. And then let's not forget, when Lottie goes and sees him, that we see Demon Laura Lee. So I don't have the
Oh
one of
my
her face,
gosh.
but we see Jane Widdop is back. She's holding Leonard, and she's essentially a demon. So what does that mean? How does her manifesting play into Lottie's part in all of this? What's your take on that?
I honestly don't really know how to interpret it. Like, I feel like she sees Laura Lee because she's looking for like guidance on what to do. And Laura Lee, when she was alive, like, was like Lottie was leaning into her for like explanations as to what was going on while they were out there. And Laura Lee told her to turn to God. So I feel like she saw her because like she just didn't know what to do, and that was like her version of God in a way, if that makes sense.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of religious depiction in this episode, with Lottie being depicted again in this light of the Virgin Mary, and then seeing Laura Lee, who was indeed that religious presence in the teen timeline. I mean, it's got to all play together. And I'm curious, I wonder if Lottie's seen any of the other dead people at any point, or if it's exclusively Laura Lee and it does tie into them having that experience with Lottie's vision and her baptizing her, etc. Because they had that bond, right? Laura Lee essentially baptized Lottie.
Yeah.
So,
but like you said, like there's so much about it that doesn't add up. And for me, the biggest piece is the bank account detail, because if Travis didn't have any intention of dying, then why would he leave that information for you? And not only that, like you pointed out a couple other things that make it fishy. Like, how did she know where Travis lived? How did she know
right?
where Travis worked? And how did Travis even contact her? Because like she said, she was in a mental institution for 25 years. Everyone thought that she was in a mental institution. So then explain to me how, if that's the case, he knew how to get a hold of you and knew that you would come and help him.
Right. And it also puts Lottie and Misty and Nat near the same place at the same time. Because, of course, we know in season 1, Nat and Misty went on a road trip to New Hampshire to find Travis, who was totally off the grid, living like a complete hermit, working at Willowbrook Ranch. And you're right. How did Lottie know that? And how was it like, okay, so that must mean Lottie called the police, but how did they not cross paths with each other? I find
Yeah.
it interesting. And the timing of it, again, like, is Misty involved somehow? You know, we see her playing drums with the cult at some point. So we think that she probably buys in. Has she been involved this whole time? Probably not, because we did, hear her phone call, that very desperate phone call, to the girls. Oh my God, I want to read that quote. I think it's really funny. What does she say? Let's see. Oh, wait, maybe I don't have it. But she's, where is it? Anyway, it's not in there, I don't think, or maybe I missed it. But she's essentially like, "Hey girls, like what's up? Misty, it's the third time today. Like, what are you guys doing? A spa day without me?" Or so it's like, poor Misty, she's so desperate to get her friends and, talk to them. And of course,
could really use the support of my teammates.
My teammates. And of course, we know she was the equipment manager. She wasn't even on the team. I mean, technically, yes, okay, you're on the team. You're the team's equipment manager. But Misty really leans into the teammates in all cases, because it doesn't seem like she has any actual friends. But now her and Citizen Detective Walter are into it, putting the sick in forensic, by the way, which I think is amazing. And I love. And did you catch on the Reddit board that there was I think it was the Parsippany poisoner, and it sounds like they were referencing Jessica Roberts' death. So I'm interested to see if they revisit that, if somehow they find out it was Misty, and now all of a sudden we have 2 of the Yellowjackets on the hook for murder. I feel like Misty covered her tracks a lot better with Jessica Roberts, of course, than she did with helping the girls dispose of Adam's body, because she totally missed the torso tattoo. And of course, torsos are useless unless they have a tattoo. So there's that.
Have a huge identifying back tattoo.
Exactly, which is still very sus. I think the mountains are, again, very suspicious. The fact that he asked Shauna to go to a cabin in the Poconos, I'm not unconvinced that he was somehow related to the cult and his job was to get Shauna there. Of course, we had seen in his art studio all of those paintings of Shauna, which are crazy. And there were some tweets that said there were other pictures in there. There was, I think, an ear that was hung up in there somewhere. And I think there was a picture of Ty or one of the other Yellowjackets that were kind of like an Easter egg in there too.
I saw that someone said that, and I like rewatched it looking for those things, but like I didn't see them. I mean, I believe whoever saw it, because everybody in this fandom is so eagle-eyed and like rewatches everything like 20 times. So I don't doubt that this person is correct. But like I looked and I couldn't see it myself. I was like scouring every little painting that we saw. But yeah, it like, it's just really, really odd that, like, they were only supposed to be in a, like, fling sexual relationship for, like, I
Very
don't even
short
know if it
time.
was a couple weeks, and they go to this art studio, and there had to be upwards of at least 10 paintings of her.
Oh my god, if not more than a dozen. I mean, the amount of time it would have taken him to have those, he's been watching her for a long time because there's no way
Yeah,
he could produce that much art in such a short period of time. So it does lend more credibility to the fact that, yes, Adam was after Shauna for something. We know he had the book, The Skin in the Game. We know he knew who she was. We know he lied about stuff. And yeah, maybe he's just a device to move the murder plot forward. Yes, that could be. We know he's not Javi. Of course, that has been debunked. But I still think we're gonna get a little bit more on Adam and his background. So we know
yeah,
he's an artist, but he lied about going to art school. So it's weird the things that he chose to lie about and not lie about.
yeah,
But that amount of art is absolutely alarming. And we should mention that the key for the art studio was blue and yellow, which are, of course, Yellowjackets colors. So,
yes, and
Emily.
I said this last week, like, when we talked about that scene in particular, but, like, I'm honestly really surprised that Adam was actually an artist, period. Because, like, I thought because he lied about art school, that meant that he probably lied about the fact that he had an art studio, and that probably meant that he lied about the fact that he was an artist, period. So finding out that he was actually an artist really, really surprised me.
Yeah, and it's interesting about liars because I feel like in many cases liars have a hard time keeping their lies straight and
Oh,
then
yeah.
they get caught in them. I mean, Emily, we've seen it time and again, right? So, yeah, interesting what he chose to lie about and not lie
Yeah,
about. But liars get caught, Emily. Liars get caught. So we'll
they
see.
almost always do, yes.
Yes, they do. So we'll see what happens with that. But speaking of Adam, we see Callie holding that unburnt piece of his driver's license.
Mhm.
What is she going to do with it? Is she going to use it against Shauna or is she going to protect Shauna? Because it's odd. Kevin Tan comes to the house, of course, and is questioning her. And Callie's the one that saves her from the questioning. She comes
Yep,
in, gets Shauna and saves her. And she's like, why are you lying to the cops? And I thought for a minute they actually might go to the mall together after that and
I
bond, like
know,
as a thank you, but no, they don't. And
I
another thing
know.
with the adult Shauna, like the way she was handling that meat patty, like
Yes.
with a spatula, like what? Who makes a hamburger patty like that? There was like one single meat patty there. I mean, I'm sure it was all just kind of like a joke and a nod to like the cannibalism at the end, but I've never personally handled a hamburger patty like that. It was
No, no,
like,
never.
with a spatula? I don't know. There was just something odd about the way she was handling the meat, but we know that Shauna has not shied away from meat. I mean, she's out there killing rabbits in the garden and making chili, so, um,
Shauna and
obviously.
Callie's like, Shauna and Callie's exchange, like, after Kevin left too, I thought was interesting because, like, I feel like Callie was, like, looking for something from Shauna in that moment. Like, she got a thank you, but I feel like she wanted more. And Shauna says, like, "Callie, cows." And Callie looks at her, like, expecting something, like, I don't know, like, something other than what she says, and all Shauna says is, "If you're gonna leave, use the back door instead."
I thought that was, like, kinda bitchy, a little
Yeah,
bit rude. Her daughter just totally extracted her from a police questioning, and,
yeah,
I mean, first of all, we know Kevin Tan didn't buy it because, of course, later we see Callie at the bar with Alana, and she's getting I don't think catfished is the right word. Also, by the way, hate catfishers, the worst people
yeah,
out there.
mhm.
Um, the police partner with the worst mustache that I've ever seen is tricking her in the bar, trying to get her to open up. And of course, he does. And she opens up about her mom cheating. So then he gets the confirmation and goes back to Kevin. And, Kevin's like, no, like, wait, we're not going to go after her yet. Shauna's smart. So he knows Shauna's smart. He
Yeah,
knows they're going to need more evidence to get her. And he's right. But at the same time, I think Shauna really messed up by lying to him in the first place. I think she should have had a better story. I mean, fuck, she practiced with Misty
mhm,
like police interrogation. I think she could have done better. But again, like I mean, after you murder somebody, it must be difficult to lie about. It's a pretty big deal, right?
I think she messed up in when Kevin was leaving her house too, like, when he said, like, they'd be in touch for, like, more questions, and she's like, "Does that mean I need a lawyer?" And as soon as
Yes.
she said that, I'm like, "Why the hell would you say that, Shauna?" Like, he doesn't think that you did anything, but at
But
that
now he
point.
does.
Yeah, exactly, because he even was like, "Why would you need a lawyer?" And her response was so bad, like, "Ugh, I just watched one too many cop shows." Like, her lies are not even good lies, like,
No, they're not.
at
They're
all.
not. They're not. When people lie, they should at least, at least try to make them believable, right?
Yeah,
Oh goodness. Well, that's a whole situation there. And then after this scene is when we get to Sammy getting to Ty's house finally. We mentioned it earlier, of course. It seems like a normal interaction. Ty comes downstairs, Sammy's there playing with Steve. Poor Steve the dog, by the way. Don't think he's gonna make it out of the season. But I didn't realize that Sammy really wasn't there, and that just really goes to
yeah.
show Ty's state of mind. And as they're driving in the car, her and Simone, after Simone comes over, Simone's like, Ty, you're very sick, because of course the school calls and says
Mhm.
that Sammy is there and has been there the whole time. So it's very clear that he's never been to Ty's house. She
Yeah.
completely imagined it, and here she is driving. It's hard to say. Is she in a fugue state? Is she just very angry? Is she so tired? I mean, and then of course they get in a car accident, which I would expect is why we see Simone in some of the previews wearing head bandages,
Yeah.
etc. So we know at least they survived the crash, of course. But
I
interesting.
definitely think that she entered into her alter personality in that moment because it was like Simone said something, she looked normal, and then the next second, like, it was like this evil expression came over her face, and it was the same expression that, if you remember, there's one point where she's looking in the mirror, and when she looks in the mirror, her reflection, like, turns while she's still looking, and that's, like, to indicate that that's, like, the bad one, if you will, and I
Mhm.
think that that's exactly what happened in that moment. Like, it's starting to happen to her while she's awake now.
Yes. And I feel like Tawny Cypress nails
Oh,
all of
yeah.
that stuff. Like, her authentic look of just pure evil is remarkable. So props to
She's
Tawny
amazing.
Cypress. I
Yeah.
I agree. She is absolutely amazing. So we then see Misty. We've mentioned this. Got her first glimpse of Walter in the nursing home. Was it just a cover story? Was he just was that his actual mom or grandma or whoever it was there, or did he just like grab a random elderly person and they were his prop so he could go meet Agent Quigley? um
I think that it was staged.
yeah, that makes sense. And the note he left her with the disappearing ink, that was so cute. I love how he calls her Agent Quigley. I love how he's like so leaning into this whole citizen detective situation. I think it's hilarious. I loved his cargo shorts. I loved
Mhm.
watching Misty check out his muscular calves. And her reaction was like so abrupt. It was like she's interested but also confused and like putting two and two together. So it was
Mhm.
it was really interesting. Some of the music they were playing during Misty's interactions with Walter, or like his note, I thought were really like funny and kind of cartoony
Yeah.
and just fit really well. So
I love the fact that he, like, asked her for her help. Like, so now they're officially gonna be, like, a team.
yes, and we see in the next episode that they are going to be questioning somebody who's been living at the motel for 3 months. We speculated, or a fan speculated in our live after show, maybe it's Randy. That would be pretty funny. Of course, Randy will recognize Misty, so not sure how that will end up. But we see Misty getting on a boat. So
Mhm.
where is the boat going? Is this where they're
Yeah.
questioning somebody? Do you need to take a boat to get over to Lottie's intentional wellness place, and that's where they're headed?
Oh.
I'm not sure.
Huh.
I
I
don't know.
never even thought of that.
I mean,
That's
it's
a
in the
good thought.
mountains. We see it's surrounded by lakes. Maybe
Yeah.
it's like, lake access only so people can't escape. I don't know. Because
Yeah.
obviously, Lottie says that, Nat needs to wait for the next day to get out of there. So it might
Yeah.
be like a process, or she's just lying to keep her there. We
Yeah.
can never tell with Lottie. So,
Yeah.
yes. Lottie tells Nat that Travis had reached out to her with the darkness. And of course, this is when we get the whole lie story that Travis called her there. He needed to get to that place close to death. And then, of course, we see him on the crane and the buttons aren't working. And I just don't buy 1 second of that reenactment. I don't think it's true. Again, why is he giving her the bank account information? I don't believe that Lottie fell asleep. I believe that something else happened. To your point, how did Travis even know how to get a hold of Lottie? What did the note mean? Tell Nat she was right. And then something that they paid off, was we see Travis and Nat in the wilderness. And then of course now we know too that, Travis had a message for Nat from Lottie again too. Like, what is that message? Is she gonna lie about whatever the message is because she's somehow involved with this? I just feel like there's a lot of suspicious activity surrounding adult Travis and Lottie, and something does not add up to me.
I'm not really like a huge fan of adult Lottie at this point. Like, she just gives me these like vibes that like something is really off.
Yes, no, 100%. And you know what? I mentioned earlier that Sarah is in The Night Agent. So isn't Simone Kessell. She's in The Night Agent on Netflix as well. So if you're looking for something to watch, check it out. It was cool seeing 2 of our Yellowjackets cast members in another television show. But I agree. I'm not a big fan of adult Lottie right now. I don't like what she's doing to Nat. I don't believe in anything she's doing. Again, she's wearing a Rolex running a cult. I just feel like things don't add up. Maybe she's just comfortable because her family's always had money and that's just what she's accustomed to. Maybe not. It will be interesting to see, like, is this a big money-making venture with the cult? Is it all a big scam?
Yeah.
I'm sure we will get more context on that. But what an episode.
I know.
I mean, from the soft cannibalism to seeing adult Travis's fate, finally, I again think we're going to learn a little bit more about that because I do not buy it. The music from episode 202, Edible Complex, we heard No Room for a Nihilist in Hollywood by Peachy, Inertia Creeps by Massive Attack, Little Queenie by Sad Girl. And it all culminated with Radiohead's Climbing Up the Walls during that cannibalism scene at the end. And that was just the perfect song. It was the right combination to go with both the dream sequence, them eating Jackie. I felt that song placement was amazing. Someone had tweeted us last night, or tweeted they wanted to hear a podcast with the Yellowjackets music director. So I tweeted her, and I'm hoping that maybe we can get them on the podcast to talk more about song placement, how the score was done, all of that stuff. So I think the music has been something that's been awesome with the show so far. Cannot wait to hear more of the songs throughout season 2.
Yeah.
So next week, episode 203, you have received your mail already. Digestive. Tell us a little bit about the 3 pictures on this week's mailing.
So we see a bird, a moose, and I'm pretty sure that the thing with the symbol is a blanket. I think that's the blanket that we see in the trailer with the symbol on it. That we were trying to figure out like what it could be for.
Yeah, so it seems that there will be a baby shower in this next episode. We see Mari here in the cabin. It looks like maybe she's making some sort of something.
Kind of looks like she's making like a baby mobile or mobile, however you say it. Like one of those things that you hang over the crib.
Over the crib, yeah, definitely. I'm surprised she's even contributing just because she seems like such a Karen and whatever. But speaking of the moose, there's a shot where we see a moose coming for Nat in the airplane, Nat and Travis probably.
And it's a white moose.
Right? So now the question is, are they going to get that moose and have enough meat where they don't need to partake in the hard cannibalism for a while?
Yeah.
Or does something else happen? Does somebody get injured? I wonder if all of those scenes of the girls charging something, I mean, could it be tied into the moose somehow? I would imagine the moose would run away at a charging group of people, so I don't know. But
moose are like actually like kind of aggressive. So I don't know if it would run away from them. Like, I think this moose might have been trying to attack Natalie.
Oh, I mean, hopefully they can end up shooting it and stuff, but do
Yeah.
moose travel in packs? Are there
I
more of
don't
them? Are
know.
they loner animals? I'm not positive, but
I'm not sure.
we should find out next week. Other
Yeah.
things that we've seen for the preview, we see Jeff and Kevin looking like bros at the gym, having a conversation. It looks like Jeff might be saying, dude, stay away from my wife. She has nothing to do with this. Is that,
Yes.
what do you think? You think so? Same thing?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Very
Look at Jeff's
interesting.
arm muscles. Did you see that?
I know, right? Warren Cole has clearly been working out. He requested
Yeah.
like a sleeveless shirt from the wardrobe department. He's like, I would like to show off my guns in the scene, please. If we could keep it sleeveless, that would be fantastic. I love that. Warren Cole's been great this season. I still love that Papa Roach scene. So we're closing in on the end here. I think one quote I wanted to bring up from this episode was Travis. When him and Nat are out hunting, he says, everyone has their role. We're going to need more than just food if we're going to make it through the winter.
Yeah.
So for me, I feel like that is a big foreshadowing moment of the Cannibal Council.
Yeah.
Their role. Everybody will have a role. There will be a butcher. There will be a hunter. There will be an antler queen. Lately, I've been seeing some theories about antler kings. But again, I don't think a show about a female soccer team is going to make an antler king. I read an article last night that Jackie is the antler queen. And they kind of make her like this deity, right? Like they worship her. She's the antler queen. Interesting theory. I cannot wait to see what happens. We've seen the antler queen shadow throughout different scenes coming off of Ty. We've seen, Lottie with this juxtaposition of the antlers behind her in the cabin multiple times, and of course her Doomcoming costume. So anyway, that quote by Travis I think is very telling about everybody having their roles. I can't wait to see how they make this transition from the soft cannibalism to the hard cannibalism. We know, it's going to be very ritualistic, whatever it is. They end up having costumes. They take Doomcoming to like a whole nother level by constructing those costumes. And we've seen, the way it was written in the script that the pit girl thing happens, it seems like at dawn in the morning, and then they're eating it at night. So it seems like they make this whole ritual. Again, everyone has their role. So I think that quote is a very important one. So we will see what everybody's role is in season 2. Cannot wait for episode 3, Digestive. It's going to be awesome. Thank you guys all for joining us. We absolutely love and appreciate creating content for you guys. We've received so many nice messages from our fans and friends, and just thank you so much for consuming our content. We love making it. We'll be back with another Hive After Dark live Yellowjackets after show on Sunday, immediately following the new episode, and we'll have a fan joining us this week, so that will be fun. With that, thanks again. We'll talk to you soon.
Yes, until we spill again.